I guess everybody that drives from the east coast of the U.S. to the west coast feels like crossing the Mississippi is a landmark. Even though you still have thousands of miles to go, it's really the beginning of your journey west. On my big solo road trip, I crossed the Mississippi on day 2 in Natchez, Mississippi. Okay, so while the dogs run around, I am on my way to California, and hopefully tonight I'll actually start putting together videos of this trip. And Randy's at home, he's fine, he's gonna meet me in California. But we've been planning this trip now for a couple of months. It's January, which is probably the worst month in some ways to make this trip. Days are short, it's cold. I'm taking the same route going and coming because I've got to stay far south because I don't want to run into ice and snow. Although it's kind of funny because the forecast this morning in Demopolis, Alabama, was for snow, but it didn't. So yeah, we are so far so good. It's July.
Cheers.
It's July and I'm finally getting the videos done from
Happy Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, from my solo trip in January. Well, this is the video I'm working on now is day 2 of that trip. Do you remember day 1 of my big California trip?
How could I forget it? I had a little surprise trip to LaGrange.
Yeah,
So
almost all the way to Alabama.
I got to see LaGrange.
Because I thought I was locked out of the camper.
Right.
But I really wasn't locked out of the camper, which did not make me feel very competent and independent.
Yeah, let's correct that last video. I did not lock her out of the camper.
No.
Yes,
I winged the tree in front, but no damage.
Seemed like it was okay, yeah.
But anyway, so day 1 went okay. So this is day 2 that I'm working on now, and that's the day I crossed Mississippi, the state of Mississippi and the Mississippi River. I went from Demopolis, Alabama to Natchez. Well, really to Vidalia, Louisiana, which is just over the river from Natchez, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And it was the day I probably had been looking forward to the most, at least until I got to California. You know, you remember before I left, I had these, so we had all these kind of like, not practical, but I wanted to take Maggie to the beach. We wanted to have a vacation in California. Mimi's in California. You were going to be in California. But then there was also this thing where I wanted to do something that would be my own adventure.
Which
I'm
it
afraid
was.
It was, and I'm afraid these videos just make me look so stupid.
Which it was, but not, well, we'll cut it up so you don't look stupid.
But before I left, I thought, this will be a chance, because, you know, I raised my family, we homeschooled our kids, and I was the teacher, and then I did all this volunteer stuff. I thought, this will be a chance for me to reflect on everything, have kind of a retreat for 10 days, eat right, exercise, read, pray. I did pray, but I did read some, but
Yeah. As a retreat, how was it?
not so good. And I kind of forgot how much work 3 dogs are when you're the only person taking care of 3 dogs.
It is a lot of work.
And they're just always with you in the camper. We'll talk about that more in another video, I think. But
Yeah.
I love traveling with the dogs, but there's no, you don't get away from them. So if they're bored because you're just in the camper, and they do get bored, or you're just in the truck.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to stop and find another dog park, which is good. I mean, I was happy with the dog parks I found all the way across. We found some interesting dog parks. A lot of times we were the only ones there, so Hank got to come out too. So that was good. But so my first stop that day was a dog park outside of Jackson, Mississippi. I'd had these delusions that I was going to stop in Jackson and see some things. But another problem is I was very nervous about where I was taking the camper. And I was very frightened about pulling in somewhere. I could not at this point back that camper up really at all.
Since then, you've done quite a lot.
Yes, I can back up
You're
now.
Pro now.
But when I started this trip, I could not back up. If I'd had to, I could have backed up in a straight line.
Yeah.
We have some adventures later with me learning to back up. But at this point, I could not back up. So I was terrified about ending up somewhere
stuck
and calling and saying, you need to come to Jackson, Mississippi, because I can't get out of the parking lot or something like that.
No, I'm glad that didn't happen.
That did not
Thank
happen. I did
goodness.
not go and do anything and see
Yeah.
anything in Jackson because
Yeah.
I couldn't convince myself. I've always kind of wanted to go to Natchez, but it's not on the way anywhere.
So Natchez is just on the west side of Mississippi?
East side.
Oh, it's still on the east side.
It's on the east side. Vidalia is on the west side.
Okay. And you always want to go to Natchez. And how was it?
It was really
like?
interesting. And now I want to go back so you can see it too.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing I knew before I went was I think of it as kind of a Southern Living level of understanding. And if you're from the South, you know Southern Living's a lifestyle magazine. So they have a lot of travel articles, but they're short and glossy. And they just give you the how to spend a weekend in Natchez, girls' weekend in Natchez, things like that. So I knew it was famous for its antebellum homes. And that in and of itself didn't make me want to go out of my way to see it.
Yep.
But because I was going near, and I really hate driving on the interstate, so I was happy not to head right back to 20.
Why not check out Natchez?
Exactly.
I camped at Riverview RV Resort just across the bridge in Vidalia, and because no one else was there, or very few people were there in January, I had an unobstructed view of the river. The park has nice amenities, swimming pool, nice clubhouse, but the only one I used was a dog park, which was nice and right near my campsite.
So, I just set up camp and then drove across the bridge so I could come back over here and see that, the bridge across the Mississippi at sunset from Natchez over to Vidalia. And that is beautiful. And there's this pretty park I'm walking in. They still have their Christmas lights up. Just a nice evening all around. Wish Randy was here.
Wow, that sunset behind me just kept getting more intense. I'm walking along looking at the Christmas decorations. I really want to come back to Natchez now. I mean, I knew people like to come to Natchez, but it's always been a little out of the way for us, so we never made it before. But wow, really nice.
That sound is the elf that's dancing next to the nativity scene. That's funny.
And what was there?
Well, I only had time to take up. I saw the
How big
park.
of a city is it?
It's not big at all. I think the population is less than 20,000. But it's interesting because it's most famous for its antebellum homes. But there was actually another side to pre-Civil War Natchez, which was the riverboat gambler side. So
That sounds interesting.
I mean, there's just all sorts of moral quandaries that you feel as you think about the history of Natchez and, you know, the upright citizens who were very proper and enslaved people, and the disreputable gambling, brothel, frequenting riverside community. And then a free Black community where at least one of the most, as I understand it, one of the most complete records of like pre-Civil War race relations in the South is from this journal of a free Black man in Natchez who actually enslaved other people, but he was part of kind of the middle class, I think, or upper middle class society in Natchez. I know Natchez is fascinating.
It's always more complicated than what you're taught in grade school.
It is. It's also one of the oldest places as far as European settlements, because the colonial settlement there is from 1716, which is quite early.
Wow, that's
for
cool.
the U.S. Yeah, so it's.
Were there any riverboats?
I didn't see any riverboats, but in the summer, I think there are riverboats. I saw barges, but no riverboats. All I saw was the park along the river, which at Christmas time was really neat, and that's when I want to go back. And I saw Longwood. It's not actually a plantation, but it's antebellum home of a planter. So he had plantations. I think I read that he had about 45,000 acres in 1860. and he enslaved 800 people. So the house, I'd read on the internet, is the place. If you only have time to go to one place in Natchez, go to Longwood. And I paid my $25 to, even though I had a really brief time to be there. So Longwood's unfinished. It was supposed to be a 30,000 square foot, 6-floor octagonal house. So even just architecturally, it's interesting because they only finished the basement level, which is 10,000 square feet.
Oh my gosh, that's a huge.
I know, it's huge.
That's a huge octagon.
Yeah, it was a huge octagon, or is. But they finished the basement level. They started construction in 1860. And one of the things that makes it so interesting is the power of delusion. And I found a book written by a Mississippi historian who talks about the elites of Natchez and how they kept Natchez very small because they were living in a world of escapism and exclusivity, just kind of denying the reality around them.
I think there were probably a few southern cities that had a healthy dose of denial.
Well, yeah. And this one, it's just, you get such a poignant visual picture of that at Longwood for several reasons. One is the fact that they had northern craftsmen who were there to build it.
Mm-hmm.
And when the war started, they fled and they just left their stuff. So when you tour it and you see the floors that were still under construction, they got the shell built, so everything's there.
Yeah.
But you see their material. It's all there. Like they were coming back tomorrow to work on it. But a civil war started, so they fled back to Philadelphia.
Out of here. Wow.
Yeah.
That's neat.
And it's neat to see just as the building, it's neat to see kind of the skeleton of the building.
Yeah.
And where they were planning to take it. So that's one level of interesting about Longwood. And then another level of interesting about Longwood is the family itself actually lived in the basement floor until the 1960s.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so this family, huge, rich millionaires at the time. So I don't know what that means in today's dollar. So he was extremely wealthy. He was loyal to the Union. And I think she said most of the planters, the large planters in Natchez were, because things were good for them. They really didn't want to disturb the
status quo.
How things were. And, you know, yes, the war freed the slaves and it was over slavery, but when it started, it was about the expansion of slavery or not. And they didn't really care to expand slavery to other territories. They were happy with just leave us alone, leave it like it is. But because he was loyal to the Union, none of his property, now obviously the Emancipation Proclamation freed his enslaved people, but none of his other property was supposed to be destroyed, but the Union soldiers did burn down some of his warehouses. And his family got reparations for that, $100,000 worth.
Wow.
Then. So, you know, you're touring this and you're hearing this. And I had a great tour guide, by the way. I got there early and the tour guide lady wasn't there. So
very
the
interesting.
gift shop lady gave me a great tour. She was very nice. But you hear that and you just, you know, you hear about reparations in today's political climate. I don't want to comment on any of that, but it's just kind of mind-boggling that at the time, this family was able to claim reparations for their cotton that was burned down.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into that, but it's weird to think he was loyal to the Union. He had a document saying, you know, his properties were protected. And then there's a painting in the living area of this family, this 10,000 square foot basement that they lived in. Oh, the furniture's gorgeous because they had started ordering furniture from around the world to furnish their 30,000 square foot palace.
Wow.
So, and they still had the crates that things came in, you know, addressed to the family at the time. But there's this painting of his manservant who was an enslaved person. And the write-up that you read about it by the painting says, beloved by the whole family. And you think, they obviously really did think of it as, oh, he's so important to us and we love him so much. We're going to have his portrait painted. I mean, by a real portrait artist. Yeah. It's not just like a sketch. and yet he was still enslaved, which is just,
It's hard to understand.
it's hard to understand. I mean, yeah, what we humans can do to justify and get there. So that's fascinating. Oh, and then upstairs they have just in the unfinished area, they have some displays just explaining the history of the area. And they've got a replica of a newspaper article from 1867 where Julia, the widow now who owns the property, hosts a big freedman celebration on July the 4th. And 9,000 people attended to celebrate the freedom of the formerly enslaved people. So it's so...
So the former
slave
owners came to celebrate the...
hosted a 9,000 person.
That's...
Yeah,
Again,
exactly.
history is so much more complicated.
Exactly. People are so complicated.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay.
So Longwood is a beautiful building. It's fascinating as a building. It's a fascinating story.
10,000 square foot octagon is very roughly 100 by 100.
On each side, is that
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a kind of a strange living space because it was never meant to have bedrooms and everything down there. So it's a little strange.
Yeah.
And the fact that they stayed there till the 60s, living in the basement of this unfinished palace is so Gothic, so Southern Gothic. It's just,
Yes.
But it was true. It's real. So Longwood is fascinating.
Someone needs to write a book about that.
There is a book, and she recommended it to me. I'll try to find it and put it on the screen. But yes, someone needs to make a movie about this. I think it's been used as a setting for other movies, like not the story of that family. But wow. So Natchez was...
Anyway, so that was your stop in Natchez.
Yes, and Longwood. Okay, so after Longwood, I was going to stop in Natchez, which I think is actually the oldest city in Louisiana, and it's not spelled that way at all. So I probably said that wrong too. But I was running too late. So guess I stopped in a dog park instead in Alexandria, and then on to Texas.
Did you make it into Texas that day?
I did. The drive, I was trying really hard. I found my notes. I was trying really hard not to be too judgmental about what I saw and just see things.
Mm-hmm.
But some of that land was really flat, and you and I, neither one of us really enjoy flat
land. Yeah.
The bayous were interesting, but a lot of it's just pine woods, which is not that different than
bayous around the Mississippi.
No, a little bit further from. I guess no, the ones I saw were not directly on the Mississippi. They were. I know, and like I'm a little confused.
There must have been some body of water.
Oh yeah, there's bayous of water, but like Caddo Lake, where I camped, has bayous all over it. It's got it's got miles and miles of canoe and kayak trails around there.
We'll have to pull up a map and see.
Yeah, and it's funny. Oh, you will see on the internet that Caddo Lake is the only natural lake in Texas. That's a complete myth. There are actually hundreds of natural lakes in Texas. I don't know where it came from, but I spent some time seeing if that was true, and it's not. But but before I got there, I was driving through, the Mississippi Delta, which is flat land and not too interesting. Some of the places I went were bayou. That was more interesting to me because I don't see that all the time.
Yeah.
And went through the area of Catahoula, which was evocative because of the Catahoula leopard dogs, and that's such a Louisiana thing.
Mm-hmm. This is all the same day?
Yeah.
It's a busy day.
So again, I'm afraid these videos make me look stupid, but I don't judge time very well.
Well, I think they might make you look optimistic.
Optimistic. Yes.
About how much you can do.
Yes.
In a certain amount of time.
Witness the fact I'm doing these in July instead of January.
Yeah.
But the first thing I did when I got to Texas, I was feeling good because I got to Texas. That's like, okay.
Pretty far.
I'm in Texas.
Yep.
And I immediately tripped in the visitor center and hurt my wrist. Which,
I remember you told me that.
Yeah, it was really embarrassing. I'm filming the Welcome to Texas sign.
Yeah.
feeling good about things, turn around and trip over a Jersey wall that they've got. I really still don't understand why.
Do you have that video of going, oh?
No, I have a video of the sign, and then I have a picture of these concrete barriers. But I knew the restroom was right here. I'm filming the welcome sign, and I see out of the corner of my eye the restrooms are right here, and I'm sure I needed to run into the restroom. And so I turned and headed straight to the restroom, but there was a concrete barrier between me and the restroom, and I just went splat.
Ooh.
And it was not bad enough that I went to the doctor.
Yeah.
But it was bad enough that it nagged, and it was harder even to deal with 3 dogs than it had been before I did that.
Yep.
So then I got to Caddo Lake, which is beautiful. It's pretty far, and like I said, the drive was not my favorite, so I don't know that we'll ever go back. I hope we do, because I'd like to paddle on those bayous, but it was beautiful. However, I had planned to boondock. Well, I did boondock for the next 2 nights.
Yep.
And I had planned to fill my freshwater tank at Caddo Lake State Park, and they had a boil water advisory.
Yeah, we've hit a lot of those. A surprising number of those.
A surprising number of those.
I would say maybe a third of the time that we're supposed to have water, maybe a quarter, it doesn't work out.
Somehow it doesn't work out.
Yeah, usually because there's some water quality problem.
Mm-hmm. So I was fine that night because I could shower at the camp showers, and I had drinking water in a tank thing. 5-gallon jug, whatever. And I can always buy water. But I couldn't fill my freshwater tanks like I'd planned.
Yep.
And it started pouring down rain overnight, and it rained the whole time I was there, because I didn't get to go to canoe.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful anyway, even in the rain.
Maybe we'll go back and do some kayaking or
I think there's it'd be nice to go back, because they're over 50 miles. I found it. 50 miles of kayak and paddling trails.
Wow, that sounds nice.
Yeah, and it's neat.
Before the rain started, though, Caddo Lake had some of the darkest skies I got to see on the trip, which made me really happy because I love to stargaze. So it was a beautiful park, even though I had some disappointing elements there.
Okay, so it's a rainy morning here in Karnak, Texas. No canoeing. I was going to canoe while I was here at Caddo Lake State Park, but sometimes things don't work out. But we've had a nice, quiet, wet morning. I'm going to just go to the ranger station, I think, and learn a little bit about the area. We've got some exhibits up at the visitor center. So take some pictures of the bayou while I'm here. It is really beautiful. I'd love to come back. Probably really buggy in the summer, I'm guessing, because the picnic areas all are enclosed, which is kind of neat. Like small picnic pavilions enclosed. A lot of state parks, the pavilions are kind of huge, but these are nice. Just you could have it with just your family. Anyway, okay, and then I'm gonna pack up and go to an alpaca farm, which is my first Harvest Host day on this trip. The big bummer, though, is that the water here, they've got a boil water advisory, so I can't fill my tank. Should have done it at my last stop. I'm beginning to think I should just always travel with water in the tank. I do have some water, and I can stop and just get some more. I've never filled up at a truck stop or something, and everyone says you can do it really easily. I just don't know how or exactly what I'm doing, so probably I'm not going to do that. I'm probably just going to get water in my blue water container over there, fill that back up, and make do with what I can with 7 gallons a night.
So in my next video, I'll show you days 4 and 5 while I'm still in Texas. I'm getting further west. First, Maypearl, Texas, just outside of Dallas, where I did get to stay with the alpacas. And then Sweetwater, Texas. And by then, I know I am really out west.